calle, de las cañas de mis valles y el alís de mis montañas. No me dé trago extranjero.
Thunbergia alata and Ulex europaeus, two silent assassins of the Colombian biodiversity. Thunbergia alata, black-eyed Susan vine, or as called in Colombia, ojo de poeta, is native to the tropical Eastern Africa. It is often cultivated for its attractive flowers. This is why it was probably introduced to Colombia for ornamental purposes. It is perhaps the most concerning invasive plant species that is affecting Colombian soil today. It has reached the point that this plant can be seen literally everywhere around Colombia. But, despite its beauty, this plant is completely destructive because it spreads very quickly and kills every native species on its way. But why does this species spread so fast in our territory? This is due to two main reasons. First, being an invasive plant species, it does not have most of its natural plant and animal enemies. Some enemies of Thunbergia alata are spider mites, scaly insects, African native plant species and whiteflies, which are actually present in Colombia but represent a major concerning invasion as well. The second reason that have helped the species spread so fast is its biological reproductive characteristics. Some of these are its capability of reproducing sexually by seeds and vegetatively asexually by cuttings, like fragments of stems and roots. To explain the sexual reproduction by seeds, as well as one of the most important reproductive characteristics of the species, we have brought the biologist and botanist Samuel Miguez. To explain the reproduction of Thunbergia alata, I have brought some specimens of the fruit of the plant in multiple growth stages. As we can see here, this is a specimen in a very early growth stage. However, when it grows, we find this. It is a little bit bigger, and inside of it we can find a pod. This is where the seeds are stored. When it grows more, we have this. Now, here's where the amazing characteristic of Thunbergia alata comes, because when this pod is growing, it accumulates pressure until the point it explodes, and that's where we get the flowers. However, when it explodes, those 4 seeds can be spread up to 3 meters apart. Considering everything mentioned before, how can this plant be eradicated? There are 4 principal control methods. These are physical, chemical, biological, and cultural control. Physical control. Many different methods exist for the physical control of the species. However, the method described in the research of Miguez is designed for large territories and already grown specimens, unlike others which only focus in young specimens, and doesn't require much periodical controls, meaning more territory can be covered. Firstly, with machetes, rakes, hooks, etc., the specimens have to be removed from top to bottom, looking for the root of the plant, and being very careful to not harm any native species that may be under the invasion. Then, all the biomass has to be stored in sacks and later cut into small pieces. This is done with the purpose of making the cuttings not able to regenerate or reproduce, because as mentioned before, this species has the ability to reproduce by cuttings. Finally, a hole of 1 meter squared has to be done for disposing the leftovers of the plant, being very careful to not let any bits of the biomass spread around the hole. A layer of calcium oxide has to be placed before covering the hole. Chemical control consists on applying an herbicide over the species. As an example of this, the Colombian government sprays glyphosate over illegal coca crops. This method is not recommendable for the control of Thunbergia alata. The reason of this will be explained later on. Biological control consists on controlling the species using other species of animals, insects, fungus, or plants which are enemies of the species. For the case of Thunbergia alata, although little to no research has been made over biological control, the species Alternaria thunbergiae could be used. Cultural control. The public should know the effects that it has over native species of Colombia, discouraging them from planting the species and perhaps even applying the control methods mentioned before. Ulex europaeus. Together with Thunbergia alata, they are perhaps the most concerning invasive plant species in Colombia. Or certainly they are the plant species that have caused the most damage to our country. Ulex europaeus, also known as Retama spinoso, is an exotic species native to the Central and Western Europe as well as the British Isles, present in all the continents of the world. What are Ulex europaeus' main biological characteristics? It is classified as a perennial of long cycle, existing records of individuals that have lived up to 30 years. This, together with the reproductive abilities of the species, considering an individual can produce up to 20,000 seeds in a single year, make up the reason why Retamo is such a concerning invasive species in Colombia today. Being a flowering plant, it reproduces through the process of pollination. Unlike Thunbergia alata, Retamo has only the ability to reproduce sexually by seeds. But being its seed production so abundant, it has multiple methods for doing it, by biological or physical agents, including the one described by Samuel Miguez before, but throwing the seeds up to 6 meters apart from the mother plant. Another production method happens through stumps or leftover roots, which usually adhere to insects, legs of animals, humans, etc. However, this is not its strongest method. Being the nature of Ulex europaeus so similar to the one of Thunbergia alata, the four principal control methods, physical, chemical, biological, and cultural, are basically the same. However, the most effective technique to control the species physically is to cover the plant for a long period, shading it with plastic bags or polysombras. This has an etiolation effect over the plant, causing the weakening of its ramifications. Ulex europaeus is very dependent to sunlight, so making this reduces chlorophyll production. The process mentioned makes it easier to handle the plant physically, for later applying the process mentioned before for Thunbergia alata. So now, to explain why the use of glyphosate is not ideal for the control of Thunbergia alata and Ulex europaeus, we're going to show an interview to the politician Isaac Olarte. The interview was made when the law of using this herbicide to control the coca crops was approved.
Greetings, everybody. I'm here to announce that the chemical control made by the Colombian government of spraying glyphosate over the illegal coca crops has been approved. These will usually work, but only if there are no other species of plants near of this, although it sometimes modifies the substrate, making it more acidic, more dry, and more dense. Having this into account, we only have to get apart the other plants from the coca crops.
Conclusions. These species are devastating. Silent assassins that have killed a lot of Colombia's native fauna and flora. They disguise in their beautiful looks, colorful, with orange and yellow flowers, making them look innocent, when in reality they are not. Something has to be done to prevent these and other invasive species to keep spreading. If cultural control is made, it will lead to physical, chemical, and biological control. If every Colombian knew the real nature of these species, they would not be as concerning as they are. Because apart from all the amazing biological characteristics that both species have, overall, the principal factor that has negative effects over the spreading of the invasive species like this is the ignorance of citizens. Colombia is the second most biodiverse country in the entire world, having some of the most beautiful landscapes that exist. We cannot let our beautiful country be damaged by invasive species like Thunbergia alata or Ulex europaeus. It's not too late to stop them, and we should start doing it. Finally, I would like to thank Isaac Olarte for being willing to help me and for participating in this presentation. I would also like to thank my brother, Juan David Miguez, who made a research over Ulex europaeus in 2018 and inspired me to keep on researching about the topic, choosing another species, Thunbergia alata. Lastly, my grandmother, Estela Paez, an actual biologist and university teacher, who has helped me in every step of making this research. To all of you, thanks. Most of the information presented for Thunbergia alata was taken from the book Historia de vida y poderes de una especie invasora. If you are interested in knowing more about the topic, I really recommend you read the book.